That's that done with. Now you feel ready to go again. You are so determined to be a mother that you summon up the courage to be able to go for another round. What is the first thing that you should be doing when you are in that place? When you're in that place, ready to face the infertility challenge before you. Of course, you're going to want to speak to your doctor. You're going to have 101 questions. And in fact, that's when I will tell you, you will know whether that fertility specialist is the right doctor for you, or whether for your next cycle you should be considering moving on to a different fertility specialist. A good fertility specialist after an IVF cycle failure needs to be available for you, needs to make time to be able to sit with you, possibly even in the presence of a fertility therapist, to be able to discuss what went wrong, what went well, but what went wrong. What are some of the things that could be done differently next time? If your fertility specialist does not make him or herself available, please do not. And this is part of the things that you need to do after an IVF cycle failure. Do not go for that fertility specialist again. If he or she does not make themselves available for you during that trying time, or during the time when you want to discuss what went wrong, that's the sign of a bad fertility specialist. And you will tend to be able to identify that. In fact, there'll be signs at the very beginning of the cycle. Those signs are, you are forever speaking to the admin staff, to the receptionist. You are not able to speak to that doctor directly yourself. When you see that, you know that that doctor is going to be a poor communicator. And so naturally, once you've gone through a cycle failure, that doctor is going to be less likely to have the time to be able to sit down with you to discuss what went wrong. Those kind of doctors tend to be there to encourage you to go again, to offer you all of the gimmicks and the fertility tricks in order to make the next cycle more successful. They want to sell something to you as opposed to sitting down with you and considering all the different pathologies that I talked about in my previous 2 videos on IVF cycle failures. So that's a bad fertility specialist. Let's assume that your fertility specialist is amazing. He or she is happy to make out time to sit down with you to talk about what went wrong, what could be done differently, so on and so forth. You're going to want to sit down and write down all of your questions. Please, I really encourage you all ladies to go and watch my 2 videos on the reasons for IVF cycle failures, because when you watch those 2 videos, you will be able to come up with questions that you need to ask your fertility specialist. You need to be able to ask relevant and constructive questions. By the way, ladies, that review appointment with the fertility specialist is not the time to be emotional. This is a time to use time wisely. Not that the fertility specialist doesn't care, but you want to maximize that time in order to make your next cycle successful. So just in case you are struggling with some of the questions that you need to ask at that review appointment, here is a list for you.